The tense public comment.
We're live. Ready to go? Guys ready to go over there? All right, we'll go ahead and call to order. This is City Council work session, regular meeting. All right, yeah, for Thursday, May 19th, 2022. It is 6 p.m. Lindsay, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Lester,
Here.
Baker,
Here.
Reva, here, Cool,
Here.
Livingston, here, Mayor Tom Phillips.
I am here as well. So we have quorum. We will move on. First item of business is pledge of allegiance. Would you please rise and say the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, item 3 is approval of the agenda. Would anybody like to move any of the consent agenda items to the regular agenda?
6M, please.
6M.
And
And
preface
is
it
it,
by saying there's nothing wrong with it. I just want to talk about something with it. So
M is in Mary?
M, yes.
Mary, okay. Anybody else? Hearing nobody else, what can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Motion.
Okay, so motion by Cool, seconded by Reva. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Motion carries. Item 4 is dedicated work session. This is a dedicated work session for City Council, myself and staff. Expected to last maybe an hour, and we'll swing into the regular council meeting when this work session ends. First item on the work sessions, park and rec rate, fees, and analysis. So Robin was asked to do some analysis on the cost of the complex and how much we're charging different programs, both internal and external. Robin, I will turn it over to you.
Okay.
While you're walking up, I know Lindsay sent a separate agenda statement to you regarding this as well. So you might want to check your email. Thanks.
So as the mayor mentioned, was just requested that the Park and Recreation Department do some further research on the fees for the sports complex. We have completed that analysis. And I guess my goal today is to find out how much of a subsidy the city council is comfortable. One, I guess, are we comfortable subsidizing outside organizations? And two, what amount we are comfortable subsidizing? And actually, are you comfortable subsidizing our own park and recreation programs? And that's at the sports complex. So currently, users of the sports complex are Parks and Recreation. We have Twin Rivers Baseball. We also have Norwalk Soccer Club and Apex Academy. We went to several private individuals and organizations who run tournaments out there on the weekends, and many rental teams, baseball, softball teams that just want to have a space for practice. Luke, Jean, and I have met several times to review the data, and Luke has the spreadsheet that he can share with everyone there. It's a very detailed spreadsheet. I'm not going to go through the details today, but if anybody has questions, I'd be more than happy to answer questions for them. But just in a snapshot, research showed that park and recreation soccer programs, that they are subsidized 38%. Norwalk Soccer Club and Apex Academy is subsidized 49%. Twin Rivers Baseball, the city actually profits from their use, as well as Park and Recreation, baseball, softball programs, and the rentals that we have out there. Tournaments, on the other hand, are subsidized 44%.
So is there some other trade-off with the soccer club and Apex Academy? I mean, is there some other, they do or give or benefit the city some way?
I ask a different question before we go into that, because I don't know that I agree with your subsidy numbers.
Okay.
And the premise behind it, because that's the part that I want to get into is how did you come up with these numbers? We've talked about it once and I didn't agree with it then either. And I guess I don't understand. We keep sticking with a method that doesn't seem to fit the actual use out there. And that's my question.
Okay.
Before we get into what you get or don't get from different places, I guess I'm asking
I
the
don't
question
care.
of, right, these numbers to me aren't accurate. And that's the issue I have with it is if we don't have accurate numbers, how can you ask a question like, what are we getting for the subsidy? And that's the, and I don't know, I don't understand, because I'll just start out by also saying, this is not what I asked for. I asked you to say, if the Park and Rec soccer program costs $27, we're saying the field cost is $27. That's what I wanted in there. I didn't want you to go through this. I don't understand. I've said that 4 or 5 or 6 times and still not getting what I asked for from February's meeting.
Okay, so given this information here, I would say that the Park and Recreation soccer program does not cover the cost of the field. With the calculations that I have, it's $112 per player per year for field use. And
How much
so-
are those fields used? Just approximate percentage of the year for soccer. Are they used 12 months a year? Are they used 6 months a year? Are they used 5 months a year?
So we have 2 seasons. I would say percentage of the time would be at least 80% of the time. But I mean, soccer,
So 9 months a year, where you're using the soccer fields 9 months a year.
but the operation and maintenance on that is still the same.
Hey, no, I'm asking you how often they're used from that perspective. And this gets into the dollars and the calculation side. That's why I'm asking these questions.
Okay. Off the top of my head right now, I would say 80% of the time.
You're at 9 months a year, we're using that facility for soccer. And renting it
With-
out for soccer uses, whether it's for Park and Rec or private.
That is my guess, yes.
So 9 months a year, we're doing that. Who's using it in July? I'm asking because it doesn't,
yeah.
your numbers aren't jiving and 9 months doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, what numbers? I don't know.
You're
In
saying
July,
that, you're saying
we
that there's
have,
9 months of use out there.
camps. We have soccer camps out
So are the
there.
soccer
We have
camps
public
accounted for in
use.
your numbers? On your spreadsheet?
Um,
Yes or no? Simple answer. Yes or no?
The 1199 would be all of the numbers that we have for Park and Recreation programming on this for soccer and soccer club.
So yes or no?
In 2021, yes.
Maybe we should have her go over what the numbers represent and the things that she considered in putting this together.
What are you getting at as far as the 9 months versus 12 months? The facility is there 12 months out of the year, whether it's used or not. It still has to be there and it still has to be maintained. It's still, there's still cost of it.
I was trying to go somewhere, but obviously, I'm just, I'm
No,
tired. I'm tired
I'm
of,
just
I asked a
asking
yes
where
or
you
no
wanna
question.
go.
I just got 4 different answers from her and none of them were yes or no.
You asked 4 questions.
I asked if the spreadsheet included the tournaments or the camps and I never got a yes or no to
Okay,
that.
then stop
She
and
said-
let her answer because you are peppering questions and not giving her a chance. I would object compound and convoluted question. Ask a question, let her answer a question.
I've asked that question 3 times and I
So
got
ask it
3
one
different
more time
answers.
without asking 6 others.
Because I'm not gonna get a straight answer
Okay,
again.
then let's move
That's the
on.
problem I'm having, is that we're not getting straight answers and I have trouble trusting this when it's that way. And
I
this isn't
apologize.
even
It's
what
not
we
my
asked for.
intent to hide information. I'm not trying to hide information.
But this is not what I asked for in February either. And we met, you and I met, we talked, and I shared with you, I gave you a sheet and I listed out what I wanted and you came back with this again.
So what are?
But what's
this, if I can
included
ask
in
you,
here?
what part of this is not? What you want?
All along, I've said, so in what the fees that we approved, we said that the cost for using the fields out there is $27 per person.
Okay.
And I'm saying very simply that if we're charging $40 for a program, 27 of it's fields, I don't care what the actual cost is anymore, because we've said 27 is what we're gonna charge. So
That
then that
is the
remaining 13
fees.
is covering this, 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 and this, and are we covering enough to cover our costs in that?
I'd kind of like. to
That's
hear
what I
the
was
actual-
asking.
Okay,
I'd like
so
to hear the actual
$27 is the cost that we charge Norwalk Soccer Club per player per season.
And you charge Twin Rivers. And so what I'm saying is that
Correct.
we had agreed as a council
Oh,
in the
well, I'm
February.
unaware of that. I apologize. I didn't know we had a cost.
It's in the list of fees that you presented in February.
For Norwalk Soccer Club and Twin Rivers under the contracts, yes.
Because I'm getting confused. Can we make a distinction between cost and fees?
Right.
Cost to me is the cost to operate the facility.
Right,
And fees are what you're actually charging users to do. So the $27 is the fee. But the cost is 50 for Norwalk Soccer Club is $52.78.
Right.
Okay,
And what David is saying is that council agreed that $27, I'm sorry, I'm
No,
speaking. for
that's
you.
right.
That $27 is the agreement that city council came to as to what the cost
But
for
the
the
fee would
field
be-
was going to
but
be.
the fee.
But the
would go-
fee
but
would
the
be.
fee was gonna be.
Yes,
not the
and so what I'm
cost.
saying is then we take that $27 to a program. So if we run flag football out there, you run flag football and you're charging $27 per kid for flag football per season. You're running $27 per kid for baseball out there, or softball or whatever. And what I'm saying is that I want to make sure that we're covering our costs, saying we've accepted $27 as a council.
And so what that means is if you accept $27 as a fee, your subsidies are going to be different for each organization. That's what I've come to you guys to find out,
Like,
like,
stop right there.
okay,
Help me understand why it's gonna be different. I'm not arguing with you. I
Yeah.
agree with you. I just want to know why is it gonna be different per organization?
well, if you look at the chart, you're seeing that the fees that we accept per, well, maybe it won't be, I don't know. Can you? Can we adjust those fees for that?
So you're
So
saying.
for park and recreation, if it's $27 per, I wish I had my computer up here. $27, we would have to add the additional cost for the t-shirts and the umpires.
Okay, so.
So I guess, yeah, just to back that out, it would be 27.
So the cost per player per season is not just field use.
Cost per player per season.
The 59 and the 58.
Okay,
So that includes depreciation cost and all of our operation and maintenance
okay.
costs.
So if the soccer fields are the soccer fields,
Right.
why does it cost more per player for Park and Rec than it does for the soccer club or Apex?
We utilize 7 fields, and they utilize 6.
Thank you for that clarification. that answers that question for me. And in fact, you charge per person more for Park and Rec than you do for the Apex or
That is
soccer club.
correct.
Okay, so my question is, why? Why is there a greater charge per person for Park and Rec participation than Soccer Academy because of the additional field?
That has been the fee from the time that I have,
Okay, because
have been
we do it because that's the history of it.
that is the history of
Thank
it.
Can I add to that comment? Because part of this is that 3653.
Yeah.
That includes staff time, everything, because there's no overhead calculation in there either. So the only thing that came out is, so to get to that 3653, she's taken the cost of the program less t-shirts and referees.
Right.
And then averaged out the cost that was remaining on the three. There it is. But there's no admin time, no computers, no collection. I mean, there's no other stuff. There's no insurance, nothing else that's factored into that number. And that's where I get back to, I don't feel like we're getting good numbers when you're only seeing the 3653.
That is the fee we're charging per player. The costs I believe you're asking for is part of the operation and maintenance costs, which are in that,
It's in the 5907, right?
correct?
It was last time when I was on Parks and Rec liaison, the staff salaries were part of that
That is correct.
cost per season.
Okay, so that's the question I should have asked. So why is it cost per player per season more for Park and Rec than soccer club because of overhead? Put simply.
Is the history of the fees that we charge.
No, I'm not. I'm talking
Oh.
about the cost per player now.
Oh.
Sorry, I switched gears.
Cost per player, correct.
Thank you.
Well,
It'd be number of fields.
number of
Comes in-
fields,
which
it's the
is-
number of fields, yeah. Because we
Linked to number of
still
fields.
maintain we maintain all 13 fields.
Right. I guess what I'm,
But you-
again, I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm just
No,
trying to get to
you're
a point
fine.
of understanding. I would have thought that Park and Rec would be less expensive than a club program. Not necessarily what it costs us, but what we're charging people, that our kids could play Park and Rec for less money than they would play the club. Now, if I go a step further, to play in a club, they might pay the club other money. This is just what you charge the club per athlete.
Yes,
Okay, I just needed to talk my way through it.
So the cost per player per season,
yes.
so the cost per player, does that include umpires and t-shirts and all that stuff?
That cost per player per season, yes, because that is in the operation and maintenance budget.
Okay, thank you.
So
what-
I pulled that out of the cost the fees per player, sorry. The fees per player that is pulled out of, but not the cost.
So that 5907 and the 5278 include those costs?
That is correct. Yes, because it's in the operation and maintenance
Yeah.
budget.
So that's part of the reason why the cost per player for soccer is higher as well, is
Yeah.
because you're paying for t-shirts and umpires as well.
So what's the
Per player basis.
numerator and denominator to get to that, Luke?
To get to the number that I have highlighted.
Well, for all of them, because I think that will shed a little bit more light as to why cost per player is there, the cost per player per season is different.
and 612.
No,
Well, doesn't it start with the soccer portion of complex expenses, 134, 267 up above and B? And at that point in time, she divides it by 13. The top line is multiply times 6 to get 61,969. The bottom one is multiply times 7 to get that number that's there. And that's how she divides it, because the Norwalk Soccer Club has 6, Park and Rec has 7. So that 61,000 figure and 72 figure adds up to 134 up above, right?
no, I'm talking about the
So
cost
then
per
you divide
player
by
per
the number of
season.
plays.
The 52 and the 59. the
Yeah,
diff-
but when you keep going, then if you divide the 61,969 by 587, That gets 106 per player per year for Norwalk Soccer Club. Divided by 2 seasons comes up 5278. Same math on the bottom for 7 fields. Approximate the proportionate amount is 72,297 divided by 612 is the 118 divided by 2, and that's how she gets that number. So it's all proportional all the way from the 134,267.
An attorney
fast.
came up with it.
Go to the baseball. This is me saying now go to the baseball side. I just want to see the, because this gets into some of the why is there differences between them.
Before we go, before you do that, do you accept the numbers for soccer?
No.
And what?
That's why I'm trying to get there, but that's, you keep saying, let's stop, go back to the baseball spreadsheet, because this is not a simple yes, no, 1, 2, 3 thing. So on the baseball side, we're looking at 6 fields compared to 13 fields on the soccer side. So my question is, are your costs out there really split 65% to the 13 soccer fields and only 35% to the 6 baseball fields? Is that an actual, do you feel that that's actually how you spend your dollars at the company?
So with this spreadsheet, I looked at square footage of space. And
It's not a yes or no answer.
Okay.
I'm sorry. That's not, she can't, that's not a yes or no question.
I asked her opinion. I didn't ask what she put into the spreadsheet. And I said, just looking at your costs, do you feel that 65% of your costs
yes,
are spent on 13 soccer fields? You feel like that's the truth and that's how you feel?
yes, that's what we put in the spreadsheet. Yes,
She made a determination to do it.
I don't understand.
And again,
made
this
the
is where I'm saying I
determination.
don't agree with the numbers
Oh, then
because of
let her
that
explain
premise.
it. You want a yes or no, but you don't want to accept an explanation. Let her explain it.
She chose to split it up by total square feet per space. You could split it up by number of hours spent. You could split it up by number of people. There's a million different ways you could choose to split it up.
Split it up by the amount of your budget that goes
Exactly.
to it.
Exactly. And that is your prerogative.
There was, when Robin and Jean and I went through this, we anticipated that question coming up. So we made this so that you can change the percentage. So if you think it should be 40%, you can plug in 40% and it will have an impact throughout the spreadsheet that then would change all those numbers.
And what I'm trying to convey to the rest of the council is simply, I don't feel that 65-35 is the appropriate split for the complex.
Then what is?
What would you
chose
say?
to-
What would you say it is if you had to guess?
I would have said 40% soccer, 60% baseball, because they spend more of their time up on that 6 fields up there. Their staff spends a ton of time up there during the week. I mean, you take mowing out of it, mowing might be 65-35, but all the other costs are spent up on those 6 baseball fields.
I bet there's a lot more water that's dumped on to the soccer fields than it's on.
Oh, the first thing will shut off
Sorry.
when we're having the anything off.
Thank you.
We got numbers flying around here.
There you go.
But the figures that you're presenting, the percentages you're presenting are what your best estimate is, right?
that
What-
is correct.
How you believe it's breaking out.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate you trying to figure out what the actual cost is. Okay? And I don't mind subsidizing kids from our community. But I don't feel good about subsidizing outside groups. That's my personal opinion. I think that's what you were after to begin with, wasn't it? How we felt about subsidies.
Correct.
So in a nutshell, that's how I feel. Now, exactly how you whittle the numbers, I mean, that's up to you managing the program, right? And the city manager and you manage the program. But I'm just telling you, my philosophy would be the kids in Norwalk, right? It's okay to subsidize them. Some reasonable, right? Kids from out of town that come in, no. That's me. I don't know how the rest of the council feels. Leave it open for their comment.
And I will say also the fees that you see in here are resident rates. I did not put the non-resident rates in here. So we do charge 15% on top of 15% of the resident rate.
15% more.
Thank you. 15% more. I was making it more difficult
So if you
for
go,
non-residents.
so what I'm seeing here, if we put the 40% in there, David, as you suggested, then it brings that subsidy down to just 17%. So in that case, that means somebody outside corporate limits is not being subsidized. Does that make sense?
Of significance to me is that with the original numbers that you gave us as the superintendent of the programs, I certainly don't have any idea how much time your people are where, you do. It is about a break even. When you look at the original information you sent us and those two green tables, and you add up all of the difference and all of the negative and all the positive, it is about a wash. I think there's $1 difference. So we subsidize a little bit in some and we make a lot in another. So I don't know if we want to subsidize or don't, if we want to make a profit or don't, but these numbers that we got in an email is about a wash.
I've always been of the opinion, share the opinion that Ed has, that I've never understood, and this is starting from Nancy. I've never understood why we subsidize the Norwalk Soccer Club so much. Because it is a private run operation at the, I mean, it's a great deal for them. And I was always advocating for, well, let's make sure that, you know, we're in line with metro rates. And at the time that Nancy was director, we weren't. We were very low and we were trying to bring the rates up, and then it just kind of.
But
got stuck.
those rates are going up every other year though.
But for Norwalk Soccer Club, we don't, we maintain the fields, correct?
Yes.
But we don't pay for their referees. We don't pay for their equipment. We don't pay for their clothing. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
So to me, that makes some sense. That's why I started, my first question that got cut off was, what does Norwalk Soccer Club contribute? So that would help me understand why they get such a discounted rate, apparently, because we don't have the overhead. They pay their own overhead. We don't have that overhead of equipment, and we have the soccer fields for them, which is not a small thing, but everything else comes from, for Park and Rec, we do the clothing, we do the equipment, we do the referees.
Correct. Yes.
I wanna
It
Just-
helps me. I don't know if that helps you.
Well, which is kind of outside this, but where I was going with the conversation with Nancy was that the baseball program has always been much more lucrative for the city of Norwalk. And so I questioned, why don't we take one or two of those soccer fields and turn them into baseball, softball fields? You know, because, I mean, it would make sense from a dollars and cents basis to do that.
Does the soccer club, I'm sorry,
No,
does the soccer club pay us for use or just what the player fees are?
Just what the players.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
I would, since we're not a state university and we can't just take our expenses and name our revenue numbers, I would actually like to know how these compare to the going rate, supply and demand. If we can charge more, I think we should absolutely charge more. If we need to charge less, okay, that's fine. I appreciate all of this costing analysis and stuff, but realistically, it's not very important. We should be charging a market rate to get the best investment for it. If we're finding we're way over or way under somewhere, it needs fixed. And whether that market rate, maybe everyone's subsidizing. West Des Moines subsidizing, everyone's subsidizing. Then we have to too, is my point.
Right. So And looking at that, let's see, Waukee is subsidizing their own programming around 20%. Basically what's happening is their youth sports bring them in a profit, but their adult sports do not. And so youth sports,
So are they roughly around $27 in fees?
that I did not ask them the amounts, but I can.
That's kind
yeah.
of what we need to know, whether we need to be charging $58 or whether we need to be charging 27. What are some of the areas around here charging?
Right.
I think
I can
that
put
would
that up,
cut
yeah.
it to the quick, better and faster than doing this.
And that's just for the outside organizations.
Right, right.
Okay.
You know, with what is competition? And I think for the Norwalk kids, I think it should be cheaper than a soccer club. Yeah, they don't have the fancy uniforms, they have t-shirts.
And,
They'll get over that.
and if you start looking at the income ranges within the city, I think there's a valid reason to do some subsidies for those. kids.
Right.
Well,
Me
those
too.
kids don't have the organized abilities. You know, this is the only
Right.
sport they get. So I would like to
The
see that
difficult,
subsidized.
the difficult thing in finding market rate for the outside organizations is that it's lease space. And so they lease the space. What we're finding out from the research that we did was that most of it is lease space or completely rented space, but then the cost is 100% charged to those groups.
So is that least?
So there's not, like, the rates that we have of $27 per player per season, there's nothing comparable out there like that.
So when you say lease space, is that a 24 hours a day lease space, or do they lease it for a certain number of hours and then
It would be theirs all the time, yeah.
Okay.
Like West Des Moines, they don't offer their own programming, so it's 100% on the rental, they actually rent it, but they do not. Yeah, so they talk about theirs as a rental. Urbandale has both rented space and leased space. Leased space groups are responsible for upkeeping all of the space that they lease. And if there's any additional fees like repairs to like irrigation or something like that, those charges are all 100% charged back to the leasee. Altoona, they lease their space and all charges are covered by the groups. Again, they maintain their own space. Yeah,
So
so,
they don't do any of their own maintenance. I mean, they do 100% of their maintenance on the fields. They do all of it themselves.
so like mowing and painting, yes, yep, they would do all of that.
Interesting.
And soccer club, they do paint their fields on our, in our area. We mow and we maintain all the irrigation and stuff like that, but they paint.
Are there any other communities in the metro area that do it the way we do it?
I'm sorry?
Are there any of the other metro communities that use their fields and administer them like we do?
We are not finding that. So Indianola, the youth program is run through their schools, the Indianola tribe. Yeah,
They run the field uses at the school. Yeah.
yeah. And so they don't go through Park and Recreation. Park and Recreation has their own programming.
They pay a flat fee down there to the school every year. It's indoor outdoor. Ankeny was a per person the last time we talked to them. Have they responded to you yet?
It's a lease space now.
Okay.
And theirs is actually a 50-50 because Ankeny uses that for youth programming. Their own, like Park and Rec city programming.
So half the fields are used for city. youth
Not
programs.
half the fields, but half of the, half of the space is charged at 50% rate. So this is what, 112 per person per player. So, and well, instead of, so it'd be what we're doing right now with soccer club at 49% subsidy. That's what Ankeny was doing.
And then the other half of their fields, they lease out permanently, or the other half?
No, it's to the sport that it's on. I mean, they have baseball, softball, they have soccer. And they just told us that 50% of that complex is leased out and they receive 50%. They subsidize the space 50% of it.
That lease is probably on a first come, first served basis, right? That would be my guess is whoever gets in the door first gets to lease the
Correct.
space.
Yeah.
You think we're in line with everybody else as far as people taking advantages of us or we taking advantage of them? You think it's pretty fair?
Tournaments need to be increased. I don't think that we should be, I mean, I'm kind of in line with Stephanie and Ed. I don't think that outside organizations, that the city should be subsidizing that. Tournaments surprised me when that number came in at us subsidizing them 44%. So in that aspect, I definitely want to look at, I know, increasing fees for tournaments in
I
the
agree with
future.
them as well.
So,
And if you look at the number that, again, realizing 60-40, 50-50, whatever
Oh.
that is, if you go with the number that David suggested, and that number,
More,
yeah,
yes.
it's even more significant.
Yeah.
Now, can I ask clarification? Brian, were you asking her, does she feel that it's fair compared to other charges in the metro, or if it's fair for what works for Norwalk?
What is her impression? Is what I wanted, because you can tell if we're being taken advantage of. And she would be the one to see that. versus anybody else.
we are in tournaments. Our tournament
Okay.
directors tell us
Then I
that.
think that needs
That
fixed right
use
away.
other fields in the area. They tell us that we are by far the lowest fees
That
that
should
they
have already been fixed.
have seen.
I agree.
This, you going through and doing these numbers, I'm guessing that pointed it out more clearly to you.
That is correct. Yeah.
Good.
What I'm hearing is that we would like to subsidize to a certain point our internal programs. But subsidies for the outside areas are
Yeah, I agree with that.
Meaning non-resident.
not. No, I think Norwalk Soccer Club may have residents in it. They should pay an outside rate. Because they're not a city-run organization.
Yeah, we should subsidize our program,
So that now I have to pay twice for something because I'm a city resident and now I pay for my kid to be part of that, so I have to pay for it twice.
Well, you choose to participate in that, right?
She's participating in the park and rec program, but we're subsidizing that.
Yes.
I mean, I'm just sitting here I'm trying to be, this is me trying to be the outside perspective of this, that I think we need to have a resident rate that's reasonable.
It's the same thing as saying, we could, if Parks and Rec had a gymnastics program, but you're gonna send your child to Child's Gym, you would pay your private, because you want a different option than through Parks and Recs. I don't understand why you.
I'm
would-
not talking about the cost for the program, I'm talking about the cost for the fields and the use of the fields. And what I'm saying is I think that if I'm a citizen, I'm paying taxes, and then I have my kid going there and the soccer club's now having to pay $50-some per kid per season. So now I'm paying for fields that I've already paid for because my tax dollars should be going to use those fields already. And this is me as a citizen saying, I'm already paying for those
Your
fields. Why am I paying
taxpayers-
for them again?
Your taxpayer dollars should go to the city public use of those fields, not a private club use of those fields. That
Yes.
would be my
I would
response.
say.
Parks and
my
But then I would
response-
tell you that this needs to be hashed down even more and get to a per hour use rather than because I think that's why I was asking about the 9 months versus 6 months versus
Love
all
to
that,
have a
because
per hour fee instead of this per person per season.
That's
That is
because like
impossible to
it's
make.
hard.
Twin Rivers contracts and the soccer club contracts, they say that the fields are only available to them for this amount of time per night. And this amount of time during the day, they're not available to them from 8 to 5. The city can do whatever they want with those fields from 8 to 5. But at 5 o'clock, then that's what you asked earlier. No, that's how the contracts are written. Is that they're available for use from 5 to 10 or 5 to 6, whatever it was. That's how those contracts were written and intended to be used. Now, if they're not intended to be that way, that's where I'm saying, I don't know that this, I think if you went to a per hour charge, I think that you would be getting less from the organizations, just a outside cursory look at it.
All right. Okay,
Move
so
on.
what? Why don't you readjust to see, and correct me if I'm wrong, to see what the fee should be for residents for park and rec programming. And then get us some information on what the field rate is for leasing throughout the metro, because then I think the per hour is out the window at that point in time, because we're releasing the field to them on perpetual.
Yeah, and baseball, softball, we just recently did that. That was that fee change that you guys approved in February. So it's now $35 for a 90-minute slot, which is comparable to we did a sister city and metro city comparison, that not just the cities, but also we looked at the complexes that were similar in size and amenities to what we have at the sports complex. So the rental rates in 21 do not reflect that, but the ones that we are charging currently do.
And then it'd be interesting to know for sure if that lease, if they sign a lease on that space, is it 24/7 or is it, you know, is
Yeah.
it based on hours or whatever?
I had some experience in Urbandale on leasing.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was, they put together like the Norwalk or the Urbandale Softball Association. I used to be on that association years and years and years ago. And Urbandale Park and Rec City of Urbandale decided to take their, in this case, the Walker Johnson softball complex and lease it to this association. The reason why they did that was they wanted to have their sales and everything else. So they gave it to this other party to basically just manage. You manage, you get the concessions off of it, you pay for all of it, and their charge was to take care of it. They had a volunteer board that was in place that would at least try to make enough, their job was make enough money to pay for it every year through their concession sales and their rates for joining. And so it wasn't necessarily truly a private group that was leasing it. It was a group put together by the city of Urbandale and say, okay, association, you're managing that. And frankly, 2 years ago, they went bankrupt and Urbandale had to step in and pay a bunch of money to bring them back, but they worked for about 20 years.
I wonder if, it's not de novo, sports complex people, they're going to be leasing, right? I mean, if they must have data for how much they're going to charge people. They're not going to just say you can use my field for free.
Right.
So I know, I guess on one hand, they'd be competition for us, but I would think they'd be a very good resource to say, you know, are we on target? I mean, you might see $27 to play for a soccer club. And it's like, oh my God, it's like half. Or he could say, that's twice what you should be charging.
I would think we should be coordinating with them in any case.
Yeah.
Well, no.
I think that a
I
private,
have a problem with that because
Me
they
too.
are turfed and not.
right,
Oh,
a
not grass.
privately run for-profit is very different than a publicly run, not for profit necessarily. I mean,
But with respect to the soccer club portion, why is that not a private group? Why should we be not operating at at least break even.
I think it's gonna be a like-kind product. You're gonna be in competition with them regardless, whether you think you are or not. Yeah, they're fancier courts and all this stuff.
So, you know,
I
you
just,
adjust for
so
that. We
I
can
just
adjust.
see the soccer club as, and maybe we change the way that we contract with them, but I see the soccer club as using our fields, which again is no small thing, but they're not using everything else that the rest of the clubs use. I mean, or the rest of the park and rec, they are, so maybe we change it to a lease the field for so many hours kind of thing with them. But I mean, it makes sense to me now why there's that price difference, because their players are actually paying way more than $27. We're just getting $27 of it for a use of the field. Our park and rec kids are paying 30, well, by this chart now, $36, but it's for everything. So, I mean, to me, that just, it makes sense. And again, I'm not opposed to us changing if we wanted to turn to some kind of hourly lease agreement or something with the soccer club. I'm not saying no, but
What's your hourly rate for a soccer field?
For a soccer field,
I know we've had to do this periodically with the soccer club when they've had an extra, like 2 games scheduled and we put
Yeah.
one up on that other field for them.
fees,
25 or 30.
I want to say it's 25, and isn't that? Yeah, I also want to, I think, is that for 2 hours?
Probably.
I don't think it's for an hour.
I can look it up. It'll take a second.
At the hourly rate, you're gonna get about half their season.
Well, that hourly rate was, I've been looking at that to change. anyway. That's just kind of a-
But even doubling the rate brings you. And at that point, you're almost charging what it is, Recplex, so it should be turf with lights already, and it's 75 an hour. I think that's, if you start looking at like product, you've got to kind of look at some of that stuff too. So just, I think it's worth looking at. I just don't know that, and it's not going to change overnight either, because I think that both Twin Rivers and the Norwalk Soccer Club are under contract.
They are.
They both have 6-month cancellations. If I remember right, Jim? And so the next contract year starts on August 15th, so it would take, there's another year at the rates, but those both go up to 28 next year.
feel like you have clear enough direction about what council or
I'm
or
gonna
not.
try, I'm very
'cause
sorry.
I think we can
So-
summarize and move on to the.
Yeah, so I'm gonna research fees for to make sure that park and recreation fees are comparable to other cities, so we are at market rate for what we are charging. I'm also going to see if I can find field rates for leasing, whether that is a per hour fee or if that is just an overall lease space. It is per hour or per field for the season or for the year. Which is that 24/7 question. I think I still will go to Mike and find out what his thoughts are on a rate. I can bring that back to you guys, knowing that's a private amount and that is for turf fields. David just told me that Recplex is $75 an hour, so I do have that for rental rates to start with, but that is lights and turf, so that is different than our fields. And yeah, and then Jackie, you had asked about the lease space again, just finding out if that's an hourly or if that's just a yearly rate.
I would also like you to please come back with a proposed fee for tournaments so that we can change
Okay.
that and that fee.
Yeah.
That goes.
I think if we just decide to lease to like Norwalk Soccer Club.
I agree. I agree.
You're,
Might be an easier way. I don't know. Maybe it's not.
for complex, one-time use practice fee. Baseball, softball, soccer, in parentheses, field, it says $20 up to 2 hours.
Okay, that's what I said 25, but it's 20. Yeah. Which is very low, I think.
So
So-
we good?
You have more than enough information now?
I do. What was the last thing that you asked me to do? I'm very sorry.
Is to bring back whatever, yeah, I think we have to formally approve them and it goes in the ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for putting all that together.
Gives the chief about 10 minutes to explain.
All right. UTV, ATV, golf cart discussion. We've already had some discussion on this topic. So Chief, going to turn it over to you. And then we can find out if there are any policy changes that council would like to see regarding usage of these types of vehicles.
Yeah.
So what I laid on the slide we talked about in October, I didn't feel like we needed to go through it all over again. And I did think it'd be important that if we start talking about all this, that we run through the slides of what each type of vehicle looks like. So that when we speak about a UTV or a golf cart, we all know what we're speaking about together. So that we're on the same page.
Read my mind.
Yeah, there it is.
That's
All right, there
scary.
it is. Let's go.
Okay, so this is just 4 slides. And again, it's just so that we're all on the same page with what we're talking about when we use a term, right? This is a golf cart. That's obvious. But a golf cart does not meet NHTSA standards. Next slide.
Now, is that NHT, is that include what you're referring to as a shatterproof windshield, rear view mirrors?
And brake lights,
Wipers.
all that
Well, a
goes
lot of them have taillights and headlights, but
This next one is what's called in Iowa code a low-speed vehicle. It looks like a golf cart in a sense, but it meets a specific mix of definition and it is allowed by Iowa code on public streets at 35 miles an hour, as long as it has a license plate issued by DOT. There are at least 2 of these in town last summer. I don't know if anybody else has for this.
Can they cross the street that's over?
Yes, they can cross the street, but they can't drive. I believe that is correct.
Okay.
I believe I am correct when I say they can cross the street, by which we can't drive on.
So because that's a state law, there's no option for us to outlaw this anywhere
Correct.
in that area.
Correct. They are outlawed on a road of more than 35 miles an hour. I might say that in the back of this, cross. Highway 20. Okay, the next
Stephanie,
slide.
before you go on, Stephanie or Brian, if you drove this to Echo to go golfing, would Cola let you drive this on the course?
that would not be it.
So your old PowerPoint says they may not operate on a street with a speed limit higher than 35, but they can cross
Yeah.
that street.
I think that's right.
So it looks like a golf cart, but the golf course might not let it on the course. It's probably too heavy. It would make traction roads. Okay, so then the next 2 slides are what's probably important for tonight's discussion. This is a UTV. And the UTV usually has a bench seat and a steering wheel and other safety equipment for use on roadways, headlights, taillights, that sort of thing. And then the next slide is an ATV. An ATV is a 4-wheeler. That you would go 4-wheeler on. That UTV too, but notice that an ATV It's got a straddle seat. It's got a handlebar. It's less of a vehicle height than a UTV. So as we discuss this, or as you guys discuss this, when you're talking about a UTV, is this, not a four-wheel, even though that is a four-wheel.
A UTV side by side is
Side by
another
side,
way to
another
describe a
to refer
UTV.
to, yeah, because of the bench seat versus the straddle seat.
Right.
So this got brought back up at, by request. I am not a proponent of, I professionally am not a proponent of UTVs on the street, golf carts that are on the street. State law allows us to authorize UTVs. And state law allows us to authorize golf carts with certain restrictions. Those restrictions are I'm happy to research further, create whatever ordinances that you all discuss or want me to consider putting on paper for further discussion.
So I'm one of the people that asked you to ask that we revisit this issue. And here's my problem. As I understand it, golf carts are not allowed to operate on city streets. And still, there are a significant amount of golf carts operated in Echo Valley and some in Lakewood, and I don't know where else, but those are the two areas that I see. We either need to say they can do it, or we need to enforce that they cannot. And that's what I want to see. The UTV issue, the side-by-side issue, the loudest voice in my ear about that believes he has found a workaround. I don't know whether his workaround's legitimate or not.
That's the South Dakota license plate workaround.
That is.
I'm going to say that without being able to quote the Iowa code specifically, I'm going to say that if the vehicle is housed in Iowa, it will need to be registered in Iowa,
Okay.
regardless of what else they say.
Okay, so then the issue may not be put to bed, but I have a problem with the appearance that golf club, country club members can drive around on their golf carts without consequence. And others cannot drive around on their UTVs without consequence. I have a problem with the appearance of a disparity in the class of people that are being affected by those two enforcements. I have a problem with us saying we're not going to do a UTV ordinance because once they get in the county, they can't drive it. That's not my issue. What they can and can't do in the county is not my issue. What they can and can't do in our city is my issue. And if we don't want a UTV driving the streets, that's fine, but I'm not satisfied with, just let me finish.
Yep, I'm chomping
I
at
know,
the bit,
I know you are.
chomping at the bit.
I'm not satisfied with, we're not gonna do it because there's no place for them to go, because I believe that there's significant disagreement whether or not it's valid. So that's why I wanted this to come back. I'm not advocating for or against us drafting any ordinances. I am advocating for us to equally and fairly enforce the rules. And I don't see that as happening, and I'm not blaming the police department. I think it is an overall attitude.
I can say your concern is my concern. I have the same concerns. And I can say that we are enforcing both of those equally in that we go for voluntary compliance and get warnings. For the most part, I know of one instance that we rode a UTV on the street. on Highway 28. But other than that, I can say that it has been equally enforced with voluntary compliance education.
Okay.
Could be wrong.
No, and I don't have data to say that you're not wrong. It doesn't appear to be being effective, would be my observation.
I have a different, obviously, point of view. I would think the UTV and ATV are extremely fast vehicles. I've seen some of those do 60 and 70 miles an hour. Not the elitist argument that you had aside, but I really disagree with that. I
I know
know a
you do.
lot of people that have golf carts that are not members of golf clubs. Anyway, one vehicle is a very low speed. Typical is 14 miles an hour. At the very maximum is 19 miles an hour. The other one is 60, 70 miles per hour. And little kids, adults, anybody, they can splash themselves all over the place. A UTV, I thought they're very fast. And the ATVs, I've seen them. I know they're fast. So how would you put those in the same regard?
I am speaking more in terms of the actual and practical use that I see around our city.
Because you
And-
need an ATV for a concrete street?
I am
Four-wheel
talking
drive?
about UTVs. I'm not talking about ATVs. So I go back to the
Okay,
chief's point.
UTV,
Let's-
ATV, same thing.
No, it's not the same thing, and
It
that's
is,
part
it's
of it.
all-wheel drive. You do not need it on concrete. You absolutely have no purpose of it on concrete. It's a street. You don't need knobby tires to go on the street.
You know,
That's not
though,
their point.
can I make a comment here on that? Okay, I do see those around the community as service vehicles. And I've seen them out and about and around. Some of them kind of slip and slide out on the concrete a little bit. It's where they're going for maintenance, right? So it happens, right? But where I'd be coming from is for you to lean into the golf cart thing. Because the children that are driving those every summer in both the Lakewood side as well as Echo Valley side. And I have had complaints from people that live there that tell me somebody's going to get killed. These kids are turning right in front of oncoming cars. These kids are little. I mean, they are very little. And parents, for whatever reason, are letting them operate these carts on the street. And it's crazy, okay? And I don't care what class a kid is or isn't, right? If it's risky behavior, we certainly should try to curb it, right? And I think from my point of view, that's where the discussion is. And I know you have an unfortunate job because you're not going to catch everything, but you're going to be blamed when you don't. Okay? So as best as you can, lean into that, right? Let the community see efforts, visible efforts in that regard, particularly during the summer months. These things, these UTVs, okay? I don't know if there's an answer for that. These people use these for maintenance work. They really do. And they're handy for it. They're handy for it, okay? But they're not allowed on our streets, right? I don't know. Good thing, bad thing? I don't know. You know, but that's the way it is right now. So they're not allowed unless we change it. Golf carts definitely should not be allowed, and we should not change that. And we should strictly enforce that. The state, again, in its infinite wisdom, handed us another limit with the other vehicle. There's nothing we can do about it. Okay. But it is what it is, right?
Why are you not wanting the golf carts legal? Is it only, no one wants little kids driving anything. I don't want little kids
Because
driving
they're
a UTV
dangerous. They
or
are
a golf
not
cart.
built to be operated on a public street. I don't even want those bubble cars on the public street, right? The second. But in the state's infinite wisdom, you know, they went through and said, oh, it doesn't matter what the cities want to do. We're gonna allow it.
But in low speed circumstances, they're very safe compared to 70-mile-per-hour UTI or
Well,
UTV.
yeah, I don't disagree with you on the speed, right? But what I'm saying is 25 miles an hour,
Well, 19.
it can, yeah, but they're in a 25 zone. Now, they're not going to be the only vehicle involved in the crash.
Right.
Okay? And there's pretty significant impact at 25 miles an hour. That's not a
19.
bent bumper.
Right.
And you're not going to see seat belts, and you're not going to see, you know, unbreakable glass in a golf cart. But I am seeing kids that are 10 years old and under driving those things on the street.
And they should be arrested
That's
or
stupid.
thrown in jail.
Well, I don't want to go that far about it. Yeah, put them on the stake.
My point is, we tried that. You're throwing out the baby with the bathwater is the point. No one wants a 10-year-old driving anything on the street.
Right.
But I'm having a tough time seeing a 15 or 19 mile per hour golf cart being construed as a high-speed vehicle.
They are a preferred mode of transportation for people who want, currently, for people who want to go to the bar and drink all afternoon. And then golf cart.
Are you making another judgment?
No, I'm making an
I'm just trying to get
observation that I have seen over and over and over again.
And that's at least good for 5 people I know.
And you need to quit doing.
There's
it,
hundreds
Peter,
of
I tell
people.
you. But the risk isn't the car. It's the other vehicle meeting the car.
I agree. It's just like motorcycles. They're very dangerous. I don't like 10-year-olds driving motorcycles or mopeds either.
I could tell you a lot of stories, but we need to take the time. But that's why I come from where I'm at. I don't think we need to change a doggone thing. I think we just need to lean into enforcement and call it
I
good.
agree with that.
I would agree with that from, well, children aside, twice in the last month, I almost hit an adult who just pulled out in front of me when I was driving down the main road that comes into Echo Valley. They're just not even, they're just right in front of me. So I know that it's like a little sensitive, and I know that, you know, Echo Valley, Capola Management, United Properties would prefer that they handle on a voluntary basis, but that's not successful. And I think that if you start giving tickets, it will wake people up. And I don't know, I mean, there are perfectly good cart paths all through the community. That is why they put them in. And I don't know why people don't use them. And it's not that hard.
Too bad we can't cite the parents,
Well,
you know?
yeah, whichever way you can do it, I don't know. I guess you can give a ticket to an 8-year-old.
You can give a ticket to a child. You can give a ticket to a child, and you can be darn sure the parents is gonna be the one who's gonna pay for it, so they're gonna feel it. So,
Okay,
yes, I mean, yes, you
Yeah,
can
So
ticket
I
a
would like
child.
you to please enforce it. And I don't know, you know, there are prime times to sit in Echo Valley. You know, it's like after school is when they start doing the rounds every weekend, and then like Friday, Saturday evening, it's like scooping the loop. You know, they just go round and round, and they chase each other, and they play there, and they're hanging off the sides. It's just, it's dangerous, especially when it's dusk and or dark and you can't see them.
What about the adult golfers who like to golf every morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they drive through city streets from their house to the golf course, or they drive from hole number 8 to hole number 9, which crosses the street?
Well,
I
that's
think
an
they-
incidental.
I think they can cross the street. can't
Incidental,
they?
it's part of the golf course itself is crossing the street.
Say.
Right.
Technical for reading the ordinance is not allowed to cross the street.
But that's the design of the golf course, both at Legacy and Echo Valley and
The
everywhere
letter of
else.
the law, not the spirit of the law, says you have to cross the street. I will return the
Well, would there be any interest? I mean, there's snowmobile laws, there's driver's license laws for underage school drivers, where, you know, they'll actually dictate the direct path from house to destination. If we follow the rules, as operator must have valid driver's license, slow moving vehicle sign, only between sunrise and sunset, brakes. And we limit it to where they drive, such as, okay, you could drive and just go directly to play golf, or come back from golf, or to cross streets.
Well,
while
wait a
playing
minute,
golf.
it's sunrise
Could you
to
just say-
sunset.
Could you
No, I'm
say
not-
crossing the public street to go from one part of the path to the other part of the path.
Yeah, I'd be
I mean,
okay with
That I
that.
can get behind.
I mean,
If you
That
are
would
in
be
the route of the path, as if there's an easement,
That's,
that I can get behind.
that's actually a part of the golf course. It crosses streets several places and Legacy does too.
Yeah, and if you have to cross the street,
Not allowed
that's
right
real.
now.
Well,
Is
it
that-
it
I'm
is
just-
allowed
I'm
and
just
it's
thinking
been
for
done
the-
for the last 20 years.
There's a lot that's been done for the last 20 years.
I wouldn't mind seeing that, just from the fact that if we're asking for this part start enforcement, we're gonna get bound to get somebody and say, well, what about that person? Why do they get to drive on the street? Just
What
because they're
what
paying to
if
play
we,
golf.
I'll go back on paper, the golf cart ordinance that authorizes the crossing of the street to access a golf cart path or golf course. And then put in driver's license only. The other things that we'll have to do.
Operators permit, yes.
And then,
I want to throw this out there so you guys can say yes or no. But how do you feel about if there is an underage driver that they pull over and give a ticket? They also take the key and take it along with them. The parents have to go get the key.
We've done everything we could to explain to parents. We've done everything.
Yes, but
I
take the
think-
child home. Don't leave the child. in.
Right, I think that, right, if there's an unlicensed driver in a motor vehicle and nobody available to come get the motor vehicle, it gets impounded.
Certainly
Right.
can.
I'm not saying that we should start impounding these golf carts, but it is the same principle in my opinion.
Taking the key is the same principle as impounding.
I think, I don't know how, are keys specific to golf carts or can I get in
The
any
same
golf cart?
key fits all.
So then that doesn't work, right? That's why I wasn't
Pull the
sure.
golf cart over and issue a ticket to a licensed driver. When you handle the golf cart car, same way as you legally park it.
Okay,
That's what we do now with the car. We treat golf carts.
okay.
Sounds
Because the
good.
kid's just gonna turn around. As soon as the cop's out of sight, the kid's gonna turn around, get the golf cart and drive.
Drive it away, right? So that's, right, I think that,
In theory, he would walk home if he's just in the neighborhood.
We'll put together something along that line based on this discussion.
Awesome.
UTVs, ATVs.
no,
No,
We're all good with what we don't have and have. Anything else?
thank you.
thanks, Chief. Item C, we're gonna skip until June 16th. Item 5 is welcome guests and public comment. Thank you for being here and whoever's online. We'll open up for public comment. I'll give you 3-minute time limit for non-agenda items. If you can't take action on those tonight because they're not on the agenda. And also, if you'd like to comment on any item in the consent agenda, now would be the time. Anybody? Nope, moving on. Item 6, consent agenda. We have the May 5th, 2022 minutes of the regular city council meeting. Have expenditures, tax abatements, resolution approving pay estimate number 6 to SM Hintages and Sons Incorporated for Northwest Service Trunk Sewer Extension Project. We have a resolution setting June 2nd, 2022 for a public hearing regarding an amendment to chapter 175 zoning regulations regarding swimming pool enclosures. We have a resolution setting June 2nd, 2022 for a public hearing regarding an amendment to the legacy plan unit development to permit patios and decks within side setbacks at Legacy Circle Villas, Plat 3 lots 1 through 16. A resolution reappointing Brent Henders to the Norwalk Board of Adjustment. We have a resolution appointing Nicole McLaughlin to the Norwalk Board of Adjustment. We have a resolution reappointing Tim Cox to the Norwalk Construction Board of Appeals. We have a resolution reappointing Kevin McLaughlin to the Norwalk Construction Board of Appeals. A resolution approving Deputy City Clerk job description and promotion of Kalen Patullo to as Deputy City Clerk. A resolution approving accounting specialist job description and promotion of Miranda Hannon as accounting specialist. We have a resolution to approve pay estimate number 7 to Herberger Construction for construction of the Great Western Trail Connection Phase 2 project. The correspondence and monthly reports. Can I get a motion?
Before that, I would just like to make a comment.
Yeah.
That it appears that H and J, those persons might be related, given the uniqueness of their names. And just for purposes of the public record, I did inquire if the Norwalk Board of Adjustment had any oversight to or from the Norwalk Construction Board of Appeals. If it did, I would think that appointment of both individuals would be inappropriate, but in fact, no one has nothing to do with the other and no oversight over the other. So there would be nothing inappropriate.
Thanks for checking that. Now can I get a motion?
Yeah, move it.
Second.
Okay, so motion by Livingston, seconded by Reba. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yeah.
Livingston.
Yes.
Lester.
Yes.
All right, item 6M is a resolution approving first and final commercial grant program payment to Young and Company, 1400 Sunset Drive in the amount of $25,836.
I said I had no troubles. I wanted to go through the process on these again, because I said this was on, we approved this last time at the council meeting on May 5th, and seemed weird to me that we were approving it again. So this is me asking you, just will you briefly go through the process? Do they apply for it before they do the project and we approve it then, and then we approve it again, and then we approve the payment? Or how is it work? I just want to make sure that I understand how we're doing this, because essentially from Luke's comment, it was last time we just approved the application.
Right.
Yeah,
So
it's
our
really fair.
department pre-approves the application. It goes through community development. They sign off on everything. And then we bring it to council to final approve it. And then this is just for the payment, like all payments come through.
So we've approved it 3 times to get to pay. This is me just asking because it seems kind of silly in my mind. that
To
We're approving it,
payment.
but before they did the project, we approved this, didn't we?
My department pre-approved it. You guys did the final approval. I
No,
mean,
approve
if
the
you want to split
application.
the payment.
Two approvals, the application and the payment. We do 2 approvals.
But we don't do those till after the project's over.
No, we pay them once they have turned in their receipt. So it's a reimbursement payment. One just happen to go through kind of all at the same time. But sometimes we will approve an application and it's 6 months before they've spent everything in order to turn in the receipts to get their check back. So this one was just a little bit closer gap.
It just seemed silly, and sorry, that we didn't approve the application and payment last time.
And we can put them together in the same.
I mean, I would just, for me, I would tell you, the suggestion would be is if you can put them together, put them together.
The only thing that I think we did not do that for is we don't want county to go through the check cutting process. If for some reason you guys did not approve that application that night, because they've already done the work by the time it hits the agenda. So, but I guess we could.
So for the, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna tell you, if they haven't done the work, and you should make sure it's pulled from the agenda before it gets to us anyway. I'm just saying, if they haven't done the job and the work ahead of time, there's no reason it should be on our agenda to begin with.
Yeah, so with the application process, would it be better if the application was earlier in the process rather than so close together, or?
They usually are.
Okay.
There are just some projects where they just wait to turn in everything kind of all at the end. If they know they're not going to be paid back until they finish stuff, it doesn't.
Gotcha.
It just is weird to me that the demolition, we're paying for the demolition of the house that happened
Industrial.
a year ago almost.
Yeah.
Today, I mean, to me, it seems weird to me that they didn't get that done earlier, but I don't know. That's why I just wanted to talk about the process.
they're
I had
all-
nothing, I'm good with this one. I just want to talk about the process. Sorry. Thank you.
Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, so motion by Livingston, seconded by Baker. Lindsay, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Livingston.
Yes.
Lester.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Reba.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes, and that was money well spent.
Okay, I agree. Motion carries. Item 7 is old and new business for consideration, discussion, and possible action. 7A is the first reading of an ordinance amending chapter 107, benefited stormwater drainage districts of the Norwalk Municipal Code. So these are clarification and updates to our existing ordinance that allows the city to establish a stormwater drainage district. So this ordinance does not establish a specific district. So Paris, Jim, Lindsay, I'll turn it over to you guys. Anybody?
Okay, yeah, you're gonna see, this ordinance is for the general ordinance. Yeah, this is for the general ordinance. When we saw a new one coming in for the sports center up there, when we're gonna get a specific drainage district. but this is the general enabling ordinance that was put together, so that's why we don't have to have a public hearing for this ordinance. But when we started reading through it, it was just, frankly, it was our first shot at that ordinance, and I think engineers kind of put it together. Now that we've used it for a while, we recognize there were some issues with it. So it's kind of just housekeeping to clean it up some. And when you see a specific ordinance, you're gonna see that a little bit more streamlined also, because the specific ones, we're also doing a lot of repetitiveness. There's a lot of repetitiveness in there where it was conflicting with the original ordinance, and they weren't working right. So we got together as a group, cleaned this general enabling ordinance up. And that's what you're voting on now. And you're gonna see another stormwater drainage district ordinance coming up in the future where you have a public hearing and everything, which is the specific one for the sports center area.
Yeah, it's gonna come up in the very near future.
Like next item.
Yeah, like next item, yeah.
Okay, so discussion, questions, council? Okay, motion by Livingston, seconded by Lester. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Item 7B is a public hearing regarding the establishment of Colonial Parkway Regional Stormwater Drainage District. So we'll open up the public hearing at 7:21 PM. So the city's going to build a regional stormwater detention pond behind Capital City Fruit, and we're going to establish this fee district to help pay for that facility. Who's going to take it over from here?
Excellent. This we've all been through before with the Elizabeth Holland Park. Slightly different, but same concept. Serve a larger area. The concept is by regionalizing your stormwater, you open up more developable space for each individual. In this case, a lot of commercial parcels, but some residential as well. The engineer establishes a fee that is comparable to some of the fees that we've had in the past. We use the same methodology as we did with the Elizabeth Holland Park project. So as development occurs, community development assesses those fees to the developer. We receive that, and that ultimately pays us back for a significant portion of the work. We've been talking about subsidies a little bit. I will tell you that the fees, the total payment of all fees for the development of the area does not cover 100% of the cost, but we've identified, again, past methodology, there are overall benefits to the community to take a regional approach. Are there any questions?
So what you're showing there is just the detention facility. You're not showing the fee district. The fee district is much bigger than that, right?
Correct. Yes, it goes all the way to Highway 28 to the west. Does not include the Hy-Vee property, but south of that captures HH Norwalk all the way down to the ridge line. I want to say that a portion of the pods,
It's like the midpoint of the pods
Yeah.
goes north.
so that's kind of the crest, that's where it breaks. So the north half of that, of course, comes north.
All right. Lindsay, have we received any oral or written comments on this?
We have not.
Comments from public or from council? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close public hearing at 7:23 PM. Item 7C is the first reading. Get to it. First reading of an ordinance is to establish the Colonial Parkway Regional Stormwater Drainage District. So this ordinance establishes the district that we just talked about in the public hearing. Luke Paris or Luke Nelson, anything to add? Any questions or discussion from council? Okay, so I got a motion by Lester, seconded by Cool. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba.
All right, motion carries. Item 7D is public hearing regarding the fiscal year 22 budget amendments. So we'll open up the public hearing at 7:24 PM. So every year we formally pass a budget amendment that reflects any changes that were made over the year. So Gene, I'll let you take it from here.
Because
Thank you.
still have my hearing issue that's going to be addressed in a couple weeks. So
All right,
please Yell at me if you have to. I will not be offended.
Nicely yell, right?
Yell with a smile.
I just, this is a process we go through every year. These items have all been approved by you all. These amendments do not change the tax rate, and they're generally paid with reserves or non-property tax revenues or grants throughout the year that come in. Another example is we had the tornado, and we get insurance money for that. Of course, we make the repairs, the insurance, we still have to amend that expense line item, but we have a revenue to offset. So things of that nature. I also want to point out is the only requirement by the state is to show the amended expenditures. But I always like to show the revenues so that it doesn't, instead of showing that we have $4.4 million more in expenditures, we actually have 3 million coming in the door to cover those. So I think it just looks a little better on paper. I don't know if you want me to go through these, if you have any questions. Again, these have been approved by the elected officials. We do have about 1.3 million that we do not have revenues coming in. Some of those are carryover projects from a prior year. One example is Windflower Park. We had money that it wasn't spent. So we spent it this year, finished the project. So the money was there from last year. And then we have just like items that maybe might be critical expenses or that might be justified by using reserves that the council wish to bring forward. Again, the goal is to maintain a healthy and realistic fund balance. We try to maintain those levels at a rate set by our financial policies. And so the amendment doesn't affect those either. Do you have any other questions?
All right. Lindsay, have we received any oral or written comments?
We have not.
Any other public comment? That'd just be Art. Art says no. We'll go ahead and close public hearing at 7:26 PM. Item 7E is resolution approving the fiscal year 2022 budget amendments. So we just had a public hearing on this item. You got anything to add, Gene?
Just that this is a state requirement that we pass this resolution separately. A little bit more transparency on how we transfer money in and out of funds.
Awesome. Okay, any questions, discussion, from council?
Second.
Motion by Rivas, seconded by Livingston. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call a roll?
Councilmember Livingston.
Yes.
Lester.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Reba.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, motion carries. Item 7F is a resolution approving the city of Norwalk amended budget transfers for fiscal year 2022. This is also kind of talked about in the public hearing, or did no, we didn't. Go ahead.
The transfers,
Yeah,
just what I mentioned about the state requirement that we have to go through this process, so a little more transparency of this, where these funds go.
all right.
Motion.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Reba. Any further discussion or public comment? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Reba.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Livingston.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7G is discussion regarding general obligation financing options. So it's all yours, Gene.
Thank you. Bring that up for me. So basically, this discussion is regarding whether we want to borrow more money now or we want to spread it out over 2 years. And I was going to go through some of the highlights of what we're borrowing the money for and bank qualification versus not bank qualified notes and kind of where we would be at based on either option. If you go to that first slide right there, in our fiscal year 23 CIP, the council approved $12.5 million, 9.5 million for Norwalk Central, which we've already held a public hearing on, and we had that reverse referendum process in September of 2021. The regional detention and Highway 28, that was part of the budget process as well. These are going to be paid for using debt service. So we also had a public hearing on that. Part of this request tonight is adding the certified site project to this issue. That is why the proceedings say 4.1 million in the public hearing. If anyone was wondering where the 4 million come from out of all these numbers. That is 900,000 in 2022, and we have 2.5 to 3 million of our costs. The overall project is about 4 million. We do have money committed from the county of 1.45 million. So that was kind of one of the reasons for bringing this forward, as well as another thing to consider through this overall is the WRA. They're not city-specific funded projects, but the WRA is going to issue probably $12 to $15 million over the next couple of years, which means a portion of that gets allocated to our bank qualified limit, which I'm going to talk about bank qualification shortly. Just a few highlights of the projects. The next slide shows since January 3rd of this year, interest rates are up on average 1.72% across the 20-year municipal market curve. That was through April 29th. The updated, as of today, 5/19, the spread now in that box where it says 1.72 is actually 1.95. So that's how fast rates are changing right now. Crazy. The next slide shows the Federal Reserve anticipates that interest rates could rise an additional 2.29% between now and February of next year. Another reason we may consider borrowing a little bit more money now. This is a little bit older slide as well. On 5/4, they did have their meeting and they did increase rates by 50 basis points. And that implied rate of 2.29% is now about 2.85%. So a lot of numbers changing since I even sent you this.
Yesterday morning, he
Slide.
said that they were going to change June and July at 0.5% each as well.
Yep, that
That's
is,
why we had 1,000 more here.
the trend is 50 basis points, right?
Yeah.
Each time.
2 months in
Yeah.
a row. When you only have a hammer, the world is a nail. That's all he thinks he can do.
Okay. Next slide is talking a little bit about bank qualified versus bank qualified options. So bank qualified bonds were created in the mid-80s, and this was to encourage banks to invest in tax exempt bonds. We as government, we can issue 10 million or less in a calendar year and designate them as bank qualified. This saves us on interest costs, basically debt issue costs. We generally do that. I'm not sure we've ever not stayed under the 10 million limit. The non-bank qualified option at this time might be a little bit better for us because of the current market conditions have created this situation. We're paying a bit more in interest, may be better for us over the next few years because we do know we're going to have projects, and our projects are over 10 million already. So the current bank qualified versus bank qualified spread is about 35 basis points. Now, in the last 5 years, from 16 to our last issue, we've paid interest rates ranging from 2.62% to 3.32%. Amazing. The non-bank qualified rate projected for July. Now I have in this slide 4.58%, today 4.97%. That sounds high compared to what we've been borrowing at, but honestly, historically low. I'm going to date myself a little bit here. In the 90s, if we got anything under 5%, it was considered good. So it's still not a bad rate. So the options are to, should we borrow more now? Borrow over 2 years. Cost of waiting is likely higher than the additional interest rate spread from issuing non-BQ debt. We estimated the break even would be about 1.2%. So if it was going to be 1.2 or less, we wouldn't recommend issuing more right now. We'd wait. But again, these are estimates, but the feds are estimating about 2.85%.
Gene,
Yes.
I should know the answer to this. I don't. Is the non-bank qualified only what you do a bond issue over 10 million, or as soon as you go over 10 million, it's non-bank qualified for the entire issuance?
As soon as you're over 10 million, it's all of it is not
Okay.
qualified. The projected savings is about 50,000 for every million, although when I looked at the different rates today, we're actually up to about 61,000. I can't believe how much this slide has changed in a week and a half. So here's my little numbers here. I had 900, I think I had 940,000. I calculated if we go with the 15.5 million, which is presented in here, we would save about 960,000 over the 20-year life of the loan.
So the 15.5 million would be non-bank qualified, it's the whole thing.
Just issuing it all right now,
Right.
and it's, yeah, and that's all of those projects on that very top sheet,
Right.
including certified site.
And you're taking into account that cost savings, you're taking into account the additional basis points because it's not bank qualified.
Yes, I
So
am. Yes.
Right. Okay.
There was a suggestion today, and actually David brought it up in our finance committee. Stephanie has brought it up. Are there any projects that maybe we want to move forward that we were going to do next year? There are a lot, but I kind of think that we probably shouldn't fund all of them. And if we wanted to do that, I think we could healthily stay at a good tax rate. We could keep our debt capacity at a decent rate or a decent level. We
Below
could
the
probably do
75%.
another, what?
Below the 75%.
Yes. So right now with what we have, what I'm presenting, we'd be at 63% of our debt capacity. We try to stay at 75% or lower. If we wanted to do an additional $3 million, it would put us at 68% or 7% under that limit. So just something to think about. We do have an action to set a public hearing tonight. If we wanted to kind of step back and see if there's another project we want to do or two, we can set the public hearing next time. And then on the 16th, we'd conduct the public hearing. We'd have to just combine a few things like approving an official statement and things like that.
And we have to name what the projects are in order to have the public hearing.
We have to designate the use. So if we want it for sewer, we got to designate that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the $3 million bias?
Holland Point Sewer, certified site, land, no, water tower land. We already have the certified site in here. Water tower land.
Water
let's
tower
see.
lane came out of a different fund. You and I talked about that one.
True,
We
true.
talked about a whole bunch of different things. in that
But we,
meeting.
yes, that's true. We could use water revenues to offset that. What was the other one?
We talked about infrastructure related to the certified site. Because it's even
Oh,
beyond just
you're right.
the sewer.
We'll need
Road,
this.
right?
Yes.
Road and parking lot or something, road or something. I don't remember what else was in that, but yeah.
Or Legacy West.
Right, the next phase of
Oh,
the
yeah.
sanitary sewer west legacy. Yep. So that when Gene, I was surprised to hear, David did talk about that with Gene and I at a meeting. I was surprised to also get an email from Stephanie. Very conservative in our spending. You know, I feel like generally we're very cautious on how we proceed. So it says a lot to hear that from more than one elected official that now is the time, maybe we need to do a little bit more for that debt issuance. When Gene and I talked about it today, both of us felt very strongly that the recommendation to you all is if you decide to do that, which it does make sense financially, long-term, we would suggest that those are in terms of infrastructure improvements where we're investing in the community.
These are projects you really want to do and you're going to fund them next year. It definitely makes sense to do it now.
So again, for my clarification, do we have to name what infrastructure project or can we just say for infrastructure project improvements?
They would like to know the use. So like, I think if we say streets, they want to know streets.
Streets,
Sewer,
water,
they want to know
I think
sewer.
we're good with that.
We don't have to say
We can do
what
that.
sewer
Oh,
project.
yeah, I'm good with that too. I'm just frankly trying to find out, can we identify it tonight and include it, or do we have to have a separate public hearing?
Well, we have to set, a public hearing next time anyway, because
Okay.
we've got to publish the notice.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think we can specify that.
Can I
Roger,
ask an
sorry.
obvious question? It'd be the other point of view. Why, what would be the downside to doing this? What would be the reason we wouldn't want to do this?
Because of new materials inflation. But in times of inflation in the past, that dates me way back in the earlier thing of inflation, you usually mounted up debt. So that way you paid it back with inflated dollars. That's a very common old operation.
I like the federal government's doing.
Yeah. There you go.
Ed, another sorry, go ahead. Ed, another thing that we talked about today was we can't do all those projects that quick. I just think functionally what we collectively as a city are able to accomplish in any given year. Gene talked about that. What's the time frame that we have to expend the dollars?
3 years.
And part of your calculation in all of this is that if it takes us 18, 24 months to do one of these projects, those dollars we receive from the bond issuance would go into a short-term CD or some kind of investment to help recoup.
Yeah. Interest bearing something.
So
We
that-
know that construction costs generally appear to be rising about 17% on a lot of materials. So it's probably not going to go down over the next year or two. That would probably be another assumption, right? So it would be cheaper, it would behoove us, it would be cheaper to do them probably now rather than a year or 2 years from now. So whatever projects it would enable us to accomplish now would probably be ahead of the game. Because I don't see a lot of changes on the economy by the people that should control it.
And the biggest risk would be if rates drop dramatically in a year from now. I mean, if you think 12 months from now, rates go down instead of up, we're banking that rates are creeping up and going to keep creeping up or jumping up. They're not creeping anymore. They're just flying. So
Good point. I was gonna
I
say.
mean, that's the
this is-
biggest risk in my mind is that rates could just fall out on us. But I don't see that happening.
It's a guesstimate. I mean, we
Can we
don't
borrow
know.
more? There we go.
Wow.
I was gonna say two things. One is that, I just want to point out that when I was talked about this, I said I have no desire to go up to 75% limit. That, I mean, we could be prudent about it. And I was looking at infrastructure things that maybe we're gonna start in the next, I didn't know we had 3 years. I was thinking things that maybe would have started in 2023, but yeah, we can just do that. That fiscal year, July 1st, you know, we have time. And I also was going to point out that based on your response that we had 3 years to use it, that maybe there are investment options, short-term investment options other than jumbo CDs that we can put that money in, maybe earn a little bit more interest. Because interest rates are going up on debt, they're also going to go up on those CDs and those other short-term options. So,
Good point.
So were you done with your presentation?
Well,
Or we-
I just wanted to reiterate a couple things that it is an estimate, you know, we don't know what the market's gonna do. It'll likely go up, but we don't know. Another thing I want to talk about is my growth assumptions. You know, I put together this 20-year projection for our debt service and our growth assumptions. I put in 9% for next year. I put in 8% for the next couple of years. If instead of 9%, it's 7%, it does have a ripple effect. We collect less taxes, our debt limit is lower. So I just assume when that happens, we spend less. And we borrow this money now, but maybe we might not get to do another project because of that. Or we increase taxes to do it.
Yeah, we still have some room to turn the ship. You know,
Just a final slide. I had some other items to consider. The reason moving certified site forward is we have the money from Warren County. West Des Moines has showed some interest. We've identified this as fairly critical to our growth or a solid project. We have other funding sources. I put a little thing in there about the city's debt policy. You know, we try to achieve the lowest possible net cost, given market conditions. I don't need to read that whole thing. And then just recommend that if we go ahead and do this, that after we get the bond proceeds, we go out to various banks and do like a public bidding process. I don't know if you go to half a dozen or whatever, and just kind of give them the amount of money that we would be depositing, try to find out what kind of rates they could give us and give them a time schedule of when the funds would likely be drawn down so that they can bid based on that.
Yeah, so I would support going the non-bank qualified route, and I would support if the city staff believe that we can do what we would need to do in order to spend the money, I would support adding another project and increasing by 3 million or whatever the number turns out to be.
That's the part I'm nervous about.
Me too, but
Just say, keep it under 70%. So I mean, that gives you leeway, it ends up being like 3.5,
Yeah.
if we add something, because costs go up, just, I would like to.
Yeah.
Give us a little cushion just in case things do blow up.
I do think Norwalk's going to continue to grow. I think we're in a fortunate spot, so.
But I also
All
think the economy's gonna blow up, so.
Yep, we all hope not.
Right. Okay. So you got that direction. 7H is a resolution setting the date for a public hearing on proposal to enter into a general obligation sewer improvement loan agreement and to borrow money thereunder. So this is to set public hearing on borrowing the money on a capital improvements project.
This
This is
can't,
different. This is different than that.
well, this was if you just went with what we presented tonight, but since we're doing the
Okay.
additional 3 million, we have to set the public hearing next time with the new amount because we have to publish the new amount. So this, I don't know how that works, but this motion.
So
doesn't
we're
need to
not
have
doing
it.
H.
We're not gonna do H.
So we need to take it, or we'll just
Can we
take it out?
change H or do we have time to republish? Okay. No, okay, but no. Perfect.
It's a
Okay,
board
so
one.
I was in my mind hoping, so.
But it's not gonna change our schedule. We're just gonna do a combination of
Yeah.
Right.
things. So we'll still be on the.
So
same
do we
schedule.
table H?
You can
I would
table,
move to table it.
So.
Or
motion
let
by
it
Lin-
die.
Huh? No, because it'll come back. It'll be the same thing, come back. So motion by Livingston to table, seconded by Lester. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yeah.
Livingston.
Yes.
Lester.
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. Do you want to hold off on I as well, or do you want to keep moving forward with that one? Best to get Dorsey Whitney.
Their fees will not change. And their letter, if we just say the motion will be for 18.5 versus 15.5, but the fees will be the same.
Okay, so I would make that motion for 18.5.
Amended.
We end up
Second.
coming back with a little bit more, we're gonna have to do this again. I mean, even if like we do
Yeah.
5 million, I mean. the fees gonna stay the
Their
same.
fees are gonna stay the same. I confirmed that tonight.
So the question is, if I make the motion for bonds not to exceed 18.5, what if you come back next time and say, okay, the project's actually gonna be 3.5 million, so then the bond would not to exceed 19?
Sorry.
That's right. So couldn't I just say, with general obligation bonds not to exceed 20 million?
20.
And hopefully we don't go that high. That would be my motion. I withdraw my former motion and I amend my motion to 20.
That'd be a good motion.
Okay, so I got a motion by Livingston, a seconded by Reba. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Cool,
Yeah.
Livingston.
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 7J, resolution entering into an agreement with One Neck to provide professional services for new phone systems. So our phone system is ancient. We're beginning to have some problems with it, and they don't have, problem finding parts and other phones and such. So this resolution will get all of our buildings new phones, and they will use voice over IP instead of regular phone lines. Lindsay, you got anything to add?
I don't believe so, other than I feel like it's worth pointing out that this would be more like a lease of a piece of equipment versus having the specific hardware stored in-house, which makes it much cheaper upfront, but it does make it cost more, I suppose, in the long run, when you think about it. But with that said, the hardware won't age besides the phones themselves, so it should be, we really feel like it's a better choice.
And
It is upfront. That's for the hardware. So phones, headsets,
Then at least for the rest of it, basically.
yeah, the 14,196.40 is the recurring charges each year. For
And-
3 years, for the 3-year contract.
Yeah, so this will also allow us to, or if we have an employee that travels a lot or is on the road or working from home from somewhere else, that they can have a soft phone. The phone was actually going to be their laptop, and they will receive and make calls off their laptop. And not have a phone number change. Works pretty slick.
No,
No.
Not being a techie, I have a question. So are we confident that the systems we have in the city are adequate where we tend to put these phones that we have the proper connectivity?
I kind of asked that exact same question to Tim Geyer yesterday, and he said yes. So there may have to be some, if there's not a Cat 5, might be Cat 6 at this point in time, jack at the location, they may have to run a cable. So that they can plug it. So,
If we lose power or we lose internet, we lose phones,
yes.
which is a little bit different. But I will tell you, if we lose power and we lose internet access, there's not a lot we can do on the phone.
And most of these systems allow you to fail safe over to like a cell phone or something. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So in that case, if it was an extended downtime, you could roll it over to a phone for another phone for a little while.
Or in a bad storm, it's easier to transfer to a new location.
And any phone calls that come in that go to voicemail will probably still go to voicemail. Is the voicemail in the cloud?
yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it'll still go to voicemail. And when power and internet come back, you'll have all those messages there that you can call.
Well, and they'll also be delivered via an email. So
Yes.
if you were somewhere that had power, you could still get it.
Hey, Chief, this probably wouldn't negatively impact emergency operations, would it? Because the phone system for our dispatch unit is outside this. So a loss of phones might be an inconvenient thing for you that you'd have to work around, but you'd be able to, the public could still call in for emergency service. It would be through the dispatch center if we lost our phone.
I believe that would work because the generator powers the interior of the building.
Okay,
That sounds like it would work.
thanks.
Good thought.
Luke, is this
Hey, thanks.
what we're using in our building
No.
now? Oh, okay. You guys use Verizon
Yeah.
right now. Yeah, you'll be switching. Right, to one that,
Okay.
I just didn't know.
Other questions or comments, discussion from council? Hearing none. Anybody want to make a motion?
Oh, sure.
Second.
Lots of. Okay, so I got Livingston first for the motion. I heard Cool for the second. I heard your motion. That was just a second. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Livingston. Yes. Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reva. Yes. Cool.
Yeah.
Motion carries. Item 7K is resolution approving wages and salary rates for City of Norwalk full-time, non-union employees for fiscal year 23. So we hired 6585 consultants to conduct a compensation story. There's been a lot of internal discussion about the results, and Carrie presented those results at the last council meeting. I think this is the final step of putting into motion, getting our staff's wages to a competitive level. So Jean, Carrie, Luke, anything to add?
No, you kind of took my words from me, so we're good.
All right, good deal. Any discussion, questions, comments from council?
Thank you all for your work on this.
Hey, you know what? I appreciate the work that the staff did on this. I really do. And it's interesting, the comparabilities and how they came to it, you know? And I wish that we'd have been smart enough years ago to be able to employ this kind of a system to get to where the numbers should be. I think it's fair. I think it's fair to the citizens. I think it's also fair to the employees. And whoever else is in the room.
Well, and I met with Luke and told Luke that it's cheaper to maintain employees than it is to constantly be hiring new ones because we're not paying enough. So
Boy, howdy.
Agreed.
Especially today.
this is much needed. So thank you guys again. A lot.
Yeah. All right. Anybody want to make a motion?
Motion.
Second. Okay, motion by Cool, seconded by Baker. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba, Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7L is to remove from the table consideration of a resolution approving site plan of Legacy Commercial Plat 10 Lot 2. So next item was tabled at our last meeting. Can I get a motion to remove the next item from the table?
Second.
Motion by Rivas, seconded by Livingston. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7M. It's a resolution approving the site plan of Legacy Commercial Plat 10 Lot 2. So this is the building that's going to go in between Johnston Orthodontics and Pizza Hut. Tabled at last meeting because the building didn't meet all of the facade material requirements. And I believe the redesigned building has been submitted and is now in front of council. Luke, do you have anything to add?
Just that the change was on the western rear facade of it. And they increased the amount of stone and removed the nichi they were using.
Didn't we have a problem? Didn't we have a problem with the windows too or something? Size of windows?
The issue at the last meeting was that the design of the west side of the building was the same as the east side. If you scroll down, you can see the east side has some wood looking nichi in spots. And so they were putting that element on the west side as well. And then the smaller windows, because those are like, you know, floor to ceiling windows there, their percentage was like 68% or something like that.
Okay.
So all they did was they didn't change the window size. Instead of doing that, they changed the material type. So
it matches code because of the percentage.
yep. So now I believe it was 80% on the west side now, whereas it was 67, 68.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions from council? Comments? Motion? Okay, so I got a motion by Lester, seconded by Reva. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Mr. Johnson, everything's good to go.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that.
Item 7N, special event application, July 4th fireworks at Mackinac Park. So J&M, the fireworks vendors, recommended a different layout for this year's fireworks. This is due to the proximity to the Valley View development just west of where the fireworks have been shot off in the past. New locations on the south edge of the complex between the two adult fields. And on the map, there's a big blue circle on there. That is the fall zone. Robin, are you okay with this location?
I am okay with the location. I just have a question, a couple of things for Lions Club to think about. I signed it. I have no problems. If we have heavy rain. We just need to work on trying to, I know you have trucks and stuff that come through there, so.
They would stop up at the end where the rock ends and come
Okay.
between the ball field.
Awesome, yeah,
They were out there with me and we
okay.
walked that piece of it.
Yeah,
so.
this area is just more it's not on the fields, but it's in the area.
It would stay between
so.
the two foul line. We wouldn't go beyond the
Right.
foul lines at all. So.
Okay, I'm just wanting not to create another space like we have, you know what I'm talking about.
And we aren't digging anymore.
Oh,
We don't
okay.
dig. We quit digging like 3-4 years ago. so.
Okay, perfect. And then my other question was just, we need to work on a time for us to get in there and vacuum up those fields. We will have practices on July 5th. We don't have anything the weekend prior. We always shut it down for 4th of July and don't do any rentals, but July 5th is a Tuesday, and so we will have practices.
So
So,
you and I will coordinate that
Yeah.
piece and we'll make sure it works. Thank you.
sounds good. Yep.
Awesome. David, you got anything to add?
No, and the only reason it's coming back is I talked with city attorney about it and for insurance purposes, we thought that the council should reapprove it. J&M's insurance is in there as well. They provided me their insurance certificate for this show as well. So there's an extra $10 million from them on top of everything before anything kicks in. So.
Okay. Good deal. Any questions for council? Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Reva. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Abstain?
Baker,
Yes.
Reba.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 8, council inquiries and staff updates. Luke.
I apologize. All of a sudden, my nose started itching really bad. A few things. First, cleanup event. Wayne wanted me to mention this. Cleanup event is this weekend at Public Works from 7 to noon. Also, a reminder about our strategic plan. We have that session that'll be coming up
June 30th.
June 30th. And if you remember, tomorrow's the deadline for each of you elected officials to finish your form that was supposed to be filled out. So in case you haven't done that, I'm sure you've all done it. You just have forgot to send it.
Who authorized that?
That's right. I don't remember approving any form. Sorry.
Moving on, the next item that I'll bring up, we have, Mid-Am needs to upgrade some power lines along 50th, running from North Avenue all the way up to County Line Road. We had a few property owners, we had one property owner that was very upset about the improvement of the power lines. And as I'm talking, I'm trying to find a map so I can show it to you.
One improved power line.
They don't want the expanded appearance.
So it's going to go from a pole that's just the pole
Okay.
to pole that has a T on it. So it's 3-phase power then, which will provide a more reliable power source for their homes.
So what's very impressive to me is the individual that had the issue with the appearance of the new power lines is also willing to pay the difference to have those power lines put underground.
For the whole street or just his?
Or just hers, actually, just the section that would be adjacent to her property.
Practical.
It is, and so that led us to, in discussions with Mid-Am, they wanted to know if the city was interested in doing that any further down the line. So they give us a quote. The cost difference is $314,000. That would be the cost for everything above ground to go underground. Pretty big expense. So one of the other adjacent property owners that I thought for sure would say, no, I'm not interested. I called them up and they said, yes, I'm interested. So we have two property owners that are in for $30,000 each to have it put underground. Wayne sent out letters to all the other property owners adjacent saying, would you be interested to participate? Unfortunately, there was not any other interest. So 314,000, subtract off the 60,000 of interested parties to take it underground, the city would then be responsible for the remaining amount. There's the possibility that maybe we could do some kind of a fee assessment on future development of one of those sites. I don't know the legality of that, but if nothing else, maybe it could be in a development agreement with them that they could voluntarily say, yes, we're willing to agree to that assessment. If it meant the difference between above ground and below ground.
I think we've got lots of expenses going on. Let's just let it go.
I think I like the idea of putting things underground, but that might be something where we look at reviewing our ordinances and maybe at a future point in time, we start cranking down on getting stuff put underground. Because I think over time, that would be a very good thing to do. More reliable power, probably safer.
I will tell you that Wayne is now working on that policy, and so that would be maybe a bigger hammer to use in the future to just simply require it.
Good.
Stephanie, you had said something. I didn't catch what you said. Right before Ed.
Have more things that wasn't important.
Oh.
I can't remember.
So this is,
You've got,
She
we already
generally was
have
not
enough
in
things
favor.
going on.
oh,
Right.
and that's just, I'm looking for that general direction.
I spoke with a couple other landowners because you and I talked about it tonight. They had no interest in paying $3,000 per whatever that it was. So in another area, it wasn't there, but another area that they had heard that price. And they said that wasn't reasonable.
Thank you for following up.
They felt that if the people that really wanted it underground would pay for it, they should pay for it.
Excellent. The last thing that, so I'm just going to let that let that die then. We'll just inform Mid-Am to proceed as they would. We'll let those other two property owners know at a minimum, maybe they could cover the cost just adjacent to their property if they want to.
Actually handled that.
They actually went, the one property owner that said she wanted to put it underground, they had it all worked out. How they convert, go to some kind of a different wiring.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, great.
The only other thing that I have is just a thank you to Carrie specifically. You talked about, you wish we were smart enough a while ago, you know, with the wage adjustment and what we did, having a good HR director to give us some guidance going that direction makes a big difference. But a huge thank you to council, mayor, that kind of support for your staff and wanting us to be competitive in the metro makes a huge difference. So thank you very much. That's all.
Okay, Jack.
Brian. Lindsay? Robin.
Well, first, I want to just kind of echo off of Luke. Thank you very much for the support that you guys provide us all the time. And then tonight, the big thing that I have to share is just Aquatic Center updates. So I'm letting you guys know that as of now, we have set June 12th as the first day of the pool season, and that is due to delays in replastering of the pool. With the staffing numbers that we have, we are also looking at a modified schedule. We are looking at, we went through attendance numbers for different dates of the week, different hours of each day to come up with this, the modified schedule that we have. And so ours will be, and then we also had to look at the number of staff that we had and how many days a week each of them could work. We currently have 7 lifeguards. And so given that, we are looking at Sunday through Thursday being open. So we would be closed on Friday and Saturday for open swim. The Sunday through Thursday hours, we would keep lap swim from noon to 1. Public swim from 1 to 3. Lap swim again from 5 to 6, and then public swim again from 6:30 to 8. The part of the reason why we're unable to stay open until 5 is with the number of staff that we have, rotation schedules, we are unable to give breaks outside of just the 10 minutes at the top of the hour that we provide normal, which is more of a pool check. We will continue to offer the regular water exercise classes, but we will not be able to provide private staff rentals. On a swim lesson note, that actually is looking better than it was just yesterday even. We will be able to carry the normal swim lesson schedule that we have done in the past in the mornings. So we'll have the same offerings that we have offered in past years. But in the evening, we only have one instructor, and so we will have to modify lessons in the evening. Swim lessons will open for registration on May 23rd.
You have adequate staff authorized, you just don't have enough bodies to fill this.
That is correct.
I will tell you that tonight during council meeting, you had 2 more people apply for lifeguard.
I saw the one, I sent it, I didn't see the second one, thank you. Yeah, we have it on Indeed, we have it on NeoGov, we have put anybody that calls us and asks about swim lessons or private pool rentals, we ask them to please pass the word and send us anybody, you know, age 15 and over, we can train them.
On those spots, are we comparable with the other communities? I mean, is it a question of not paying enough?
So I think in the beginning, it was that we were not paying enough, and the lifeguards that we had last year either decided not to be lifeguards again this year or went somewhere else. We did increase our wages to $12 an hour. We did have a couple people come back, and the other ones that Shanisa reached out to all of them, and the ones that reached back out said that they had already accepted positions elsewhere, and they didn't feel right breaking that agreement. If we get more as the season goes on, we will add more hours. So we will not close the application, we'll continue to take the applications. If we need to hold another training in the middle of the season, Shanice and myself are both certified. We are the ones that train them. We will hold trainings as many times as we need.
You know that the private pools, like in the gyms and all that stuff, a lot of them actually have their lifeguard sign non-compete. So they can't lifeguard anywhere else.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So. Thought that was interesting.
It is.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Thank you, Holly.
I would also like to repeat Robin's thank you and Luke's thank you. I know it had to be excruciating for whoever put that together, and Carrie and Luke and Jean and whoever else that maybe was involved in that group that did all that work, because I can't imagine the pain that comes with trying to do the right thing, but not over, not under. Someone's going to be mad, someone's not going to be happy. But I just want to say thank you very, very much. And it's very appreciated. We're all incredibly lucky to work for Norwalk, so thank you. And then the groundbreaking, thanks to everybody who participated in that. It's just such a good marking point of so many years of work for everybody, and that was exciting. Lots of media coverage with that. And then Luke told me as soon as
Norwalk Central was underway and North Shore was kind of off my plate just now. He wanted me to laser focus on the Southern Industrial Corridor situation. And so kind of right at that same time when Norwalk Central groundbreaking was happening, I found out from our development group that we'd been working with that 40 acres of that industrial land is under contract now, and everybody had signed their purchase agreements. So that's under contract, which gives us a big foot in the door down there to start that process. I would recommend we purchase another 40 acres with this 3 million we might have coming around, because we need at least 50 acres to make it a certified site. So with that, we also met on Friday, so the groundbreaking Thursday, then Friday we met through a series of events with the Prime Minister Kosovo and his delegation all over the metro, and it was really amazing because he brought very specific people here, his advisor, his military attaché, and we were invited to these kind of private sessions and lunches and meetings with them to talk very specifically about business and trade initiatives between our two countries and Norwalk even specifically. So that was pretty cool. And Sergeant Lewiston did a great job with the security. I loved him. He just represented us well. And then other than that, the great thing too is our hotel that was up north is staying in Norwalk right now and working on a site in Norwalk Central. So thank the Lord we got to keep them here.
Gene?
I don't have anything other than to echo gratefulness as well and appreciate all you do for us.
Yes, thank you for your work and Carrie. With all that she did. I've done that before at another job and it's not easy. Monday, we held what's becoming our end of school year event with the English language learners at the high school. Last year we had a summer cookout, and this year we scaled down a little bit and played basketball at City Park, and then went to Wendy's Ice Cream and bought them all ice cream. Our golf tournament that we hold in August pays for all of that. And so it's always been very well received by the kids and the officers. Yesterday, we interviewed 9 candidates for police officer. We found 3 that we liked pretty well. So we'll move forward with those 3 background checks to see what we can come up with for a final candidate. And I just want to say thank you to the council again for supporting all and colleagues for doing all that work, because I am really, really enjoying being a kid again and watching the turkey. When I need to sit and think, I can turn around and watch the dirt move.
And you can see the roads now.
Thoroughly enjoy it. That's all I have.
All right, great. Carrie?
Just again, thank you. It's been a long process, and at no point, when I came to you and asked about hiring someone back in December, there was no hesitation, and just a huge thank you for that and being supportive of not just me, but all of the employees from Norwalk. And just a big thank you. I'm super glad that that's over. Ready to move on to other things.
Yeah, for sure. So
I gotta follow along and say, obviously, thank you again. No, but I really do appreciate the thoughtfulness of the process of that whole thing. I think that the way that you went about it and the way that Carrie and Luke worked on that, it worked out well. I always think when you can follow that process and get good data behind everything, it makes everything else go really smooth. So thank you for that. On the community development side of things, we are going to start cracking down some sign enforcement going forward, which is going to involve dealing with some signs that we've not dealt with in the past that were violations of things. So just be aware of that. If for some reason you don't want us to be more deliberate with that, let me know. But we're going to start working on that to get some of the signs cleaned up along Highway 28. And we'll be doing that in the coming weeks. Start out with some letters, notices to property owners to get that cleaned up, and then take more drastic measures if we need to.
Actually, I'll say, I told Elliot to just pull them out. So.
Yep. We'll see how we approach
Temper that a little bit.
Some things may just get pulled, but yeah, we'll work hard on. There's a lot of different types of signs that violate different aspects of the code. So Some are be pulled, some maybe involve tow trucks, some involve lots of other things, right? So
Are we gonna have a big A,
what's that?
a big gorilla?
To that point, I guess I would ask Jim if I can use my sign code to regulate the signage at a fireworks sale.
Yes.
I don't know that state code lets me do that. Which brings me to my,
That's regulating fire.
It's
It's-
signs.
Regulating intent.
but it's regulating the sales of fireworks. I don't know.
That is a good question.
I thought
We'll see what they
the
do.
size of the sign.
Huh?
It's the size of the sign.
But you know, that's
You
why
might need to review
have
that.
it.
I might need to review
Oh,
that.
yeah.
I'm not gonna answer that off the top of my head.
We'll see what they do. To that point, we have heard from, I believe, all of the vendors that were here last year now that they intend to do things. We've not required a permit because the state says we can't. I think they're gonna do pretty much the same thing as last year, but I don't really have details because I can't regulate anything. So that's fun. Code enforcement side of things, in addition to sign stuff we're gonna start working on, it's spring, so grass is getting long and people don't want to mow it. So I think we've had about 13 grass and weed violations so far in May. So I'm sure we'll keep getting those as we get people sorted out with mowing their lawns. We're up to 122 residential permits for the year. We have 2 multifamily permits for apartments in the Brody's Landing area. So if you haven't been out there, I think they're starting to work on getting those up. And then Tony and myself and our code enforcement officer attended a nuisance abatement conference yesterday. So that was interesting. Learned about what some other cities are doing with things, what the state allows us to do, and looking to maybe formalize some more of that stuff. We've got our comp plan open house scheduled for July 14th at the Lakewood Cafeteria. And that'll run over kind of our first public engagement portion where we're showing them what our draft final plan is before it comes to council. And really with that, what we're doing is wrapping up goals and strategies and action steps. And then on the development side, in addition to all the residential we have going on, we've had 5 commercial site plan pre-app meetings either held or scheduled. So lots of potential projects coming forward.
All right. Thank you. Ed?
I think Luke brings up a good point, and then something David brought up a while ago. And talking about temporary structures for all sales. Okay. And maybe that's something we might want to take another run at again. Where maybe we could look at distance requirements from occupied residences for all temporary structures for sale.
Good, but it wouldn't work for fireworks.
Yeah, won't work for fireworks.
It's what's concerning about the state law is that technically a vendor could propose a commercial structure building in town, and if it was on commercial property, we couldn't enforce any setback requirements, any parking requirements, anything on our zoning ordinance related to building a structure, we couldn't enforce it.
If they drive a golf cart, we'll kick their butt.
There we go. I'll be right there with you, Brian.
Julian, let me see that golf cart. Anyway, as far as your thank yous and stuff, I'm sure, you know, all of us appreciate it. But you need to understand, right? Our reward is having a competent staff that works well together, right? And as long as we have that, our life is easier and the community works a lot better, right? So it's kind of in our own self-interest to make sure everybody's treated fair. Because we want to keep you around, we want to keep you happy, we want to keep you working, right? So, you're welcome. Okay, 2 more things, right? So, we're going to see an ordinance come to us, a proposed ordinance, and the city manager will be getting this, I think, shortly. And it has to do with wastewater and wastewater contamination and treatment and that sort of thing. It'll apply to one business in our community right now, right? But going forward with the state requirements and stuff, we'll likely see more of this sort of thing. But we'll have that for consideration, right? The other thing is from the other committee on garbage and that sort of thing. We're talking about recycling and talking with some of the large stores in the metro area. And it might be possible, we might have an opportunity to take a look at having recycling many recycling centers in each of the communities that we provide trash service for in the metro area, right? So that's a possibility that could be coming down the pike before too awful long as a way to resolve some of the problems we're dealing with now. And that's all I've got, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thanks. David?
I only got one little thing, and it has to do with the big piles of dirt that get left over. I just hope that Norwalk Central, they don't leave them there for very long. That was the construction's done, they get rid of them. Just in Norwalk Central in general, because I get tired of some of them that get put up and then they're there for
Oh, yeah, we
4 or
had,
5 years.
we had that experience up there.
Had the Lafredo one that was there for a long, long time.
I think they're gonna need most of their dirt to level.
Yeah,
those
I'd say
out.
that one I think is different because it's getting set aside and then they'll move it back. But I, you know, I just in general, probably your department.
Yeah. The other really probably prominent one is south of LaQuercia, where they bought the leftover dirt from Windsor with the idea that they would be able to level out some stuff more for an expansion of LaQuercia, which
They're looking at doing now.
yeah, so but it's one of those things where it's a stockpile of dirt that sits somewhere for,
And
the
that one-
intention was it was gonna happen imminently, right? And now here we are 5 years later, so fair.
I just, that's something that they just popped up the last couple days and I see it. Not a big deal, but also a big deal. So
I just thought they were maybe Indian burial mounds. You know.
you don't want those over there, so we can't do any work.
That's right. That's right. Steph?
So the MPO, the Purple Heart Highway designation, interstate designation, about 2 years ago, the task force that was working on that came up with an action plan. And it involved talking to stakeholder groups, and we started that process, and then the DOT decided that they could do it better. And they wanted to take over the process, so they did, because you can't say no. So the DOT took over that process. They had meetings with all stakeholder communities, the AI community, et cetera. They issued their action plan yesterday, and it is exactly verbatim, the same action plan the task force developed 2 years ago. So we basically have lost 2 years, which is what we all predicted would happen when the IDOT took it over. And now I have asked, they said that when they had the stakeholder meetings, that we would have a robust report. We'd have information on all these meetings, what the outcomes were, and we have nothing. We have a page and a half that says, here's your action plan. So I asked that we be given that detail, because if to go forward, we need to have stakeholder meetings. So I don't know why we're gonna have the same meetings talking about the same things if we don't, you know, why this is so inefficient. I also asked that the DOT specifically state that they support the project, because there's no point in going through all of this if we don't have the DOT support. And I asked for clarification on what role the DOT wants to play in this process going forward, because that's not clear. We had these action items, but they just said, here's the action items, but if they're gonna wanna run it, it's not gonna go anywhere. So advocating for the local communities to again reform the task force they had and move forward. So we'll see how that all goes.
What a surprise.
Thank you. Thanks. Jim? As Ed said, thank you to staff. I think Norwalk probably has one of the best staffs around. I am grateful for council, because I think we have a really great council as well. So especially when you start talking to some other cities, we are very blessed here in Norwalk. So just thanks, everybody. The other thing is, and this a line is talking about fireworks. I'm going to put something in my mayor's moment about fireworks and the tents. We tried to regulate tents, and the state said turn around and overrode us. My last line in my letter right now. It's pre-edited, so this might get edited out, but it says if you have any complaints, please contact Representative Stan Gustafson or Senator Julian Garrett and let them know your displeasure. So that might get edited out, it might not, so let's hope it doesn't. I can do that, yes.
Yes, edit that in there.
We did tell the applicants when they were here, you need to talk to your, they actually did and got it done.
Yeah.
Yes, they
More
did.
power
They
to
took
them.
care of it.
That's true. That's very true. So that's all I had. Item 9, is enter into closed session pursuant to Iowa Code Chapter 21.51C to discuss strategy with counsel in matters that are presently in litigation or where litigation is imminent, where its disclosure would be likely to prejudice or disadvantage the position of the governmental body in that litigation. So is this valid reason to go into closed session? Yes, it is. Yes, okay. So can I get a motion to move into closed session?
Second.
Wow. I don't know. What do you want?
Doesn't matter.
Cool Livingston.
All right, there you go. Would you call roll?
Yes. Councilmember Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yeah.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, motion carries. We're gonna go into closed session in 5 minutes.
All right.
Maybe 10.